Hello everybody, my name's Charlotte Plasto and I'm one of the Customer Success Managers here at Hitwise. And today we'll be discussing the online black box and how we can lift the lid on this box to win your direct and indirect customers. But firstly, a little bit about Hitwise. We've been helping our customers understand their consumers for over the last 20 years. We do this by a number of different means, and that can include things like benchmarking against their competition, understanding the online behaviours of their consumers, and making sure they get the best rate of return on their digital investments. And with this, we also track and improve their campaign performance. So firstly, the agenda for today, we'll be looking at the online black box. So firstly, we'll take a look at the online landscape in Q4 for 2018. And then we'll be delving into what does this online black box mean for a retailer? So in terms of how do you perform against your competition? And then as a brand, how do you grow your direct and indirect sales? And then finally, how does that online black box affect you as a brand only selling directly? So firstly, the online landscape. So looking at Q4, these top 10 sites that we're looking at accounted for 42% of all retail traffic in Q4. In this, we can see that Amazon absolutely dominated with 79% reach of the online population. So this works out about only 1 in 5 people didn't visit Amazon within this time. So with this dominance of Amazon increasing and retailers just generally online, this creates a blind spot for brands and retailers as well. So for brands in particular, this blind spot can come from things like, how are my products being searched for and then converted on retailers? How do my products perform against the competition? And also there might be a blind spot on those decisions made for retailer partnerships. Is it at the moment being driven on gut feeling rather than those data insights? And equally, there is a blind spot for retailers online as well, such as how do my categories stack up against the other retail competition? Are you missing any brand or product opportunities that your competitors might be performing well on? And then again, how are your decisions made? Have they got limited competitive intel? And also, how are they driving those brand partnerships? So firstly, as a retailer, looking at that blind spot and how do you perform against your competition? So firstly, what we need to do is map out how our customers overlap with our competitors. To walk you through this example, we're going to use one of the Amazon brands of Amazon Fresh and looking at their overlap with other grocers. So what we can see here is that they do have a significant overlap with traditional grocers such as Asda and Waitrose, 10% and 13% respectively. And then we can also see that Ocado have the biggest overlap with the Amazon Fresh audience at 18.3%. So this could come as a bit of a risk to Ocado and their audience because they have the highest overlap. So what we need to do is start understanding the differences in our audiences and their preferences. What we've done here is taken market research data by Kantar Media, who we have a partnership with, and start to understand what is the difference between the Amazon Fresh audience and the Ocado audience. What we can see is that the Amazon Fresh audience has a lot higher preference towards chocolate, whereas Ocado audience is a lot more interested in spirits and fresh coffee. So then we want to start digging in a bit deeper and understanding what product pages are each audience more likely to visit. So using some digital behaviour, we can start looking at things like Amazon Fresh, what are their top product pages? And what we saw before and on this slide is that chocolate is very much high priority for this audience, with Ferrero Rocher, Hotel Chocolat coming through there quite a lot. When we look at the top product pages for Ocado, this is being slightly skewed by Christmas, but we can see there's a lot more kind of meat searches around turkey, but then we can see those spirit searches coming through with eggnog and mulled wine. So to summarise, what we need to do is understand that what our audience at risk is. So that blind spot is identifying who potentially could we lose from our audience base. And then what we need to do is to keep and grow this customer base. So understanding their preferences and then their online behaviours, making sure that we fully understand that audience. So now moving on to a brand, how do we grow our direct and indirect sales? So for this example, we're going to use Adidas. As you might know, Adidas sell directly on their own site, but they also use a number of other retailers to sell their products. So firstly, what we need to do is size up each of these audiences. So firstly, looking at the Adidas visitor, we can see that they have 5.1 million visitors, and of that, about 500, 600k of them are a direct buyer. Then we continue to size up their audiences on different retailers. So we can see how large their Foot Locker audience is, and then their direct buyer, and then the Nordstrom audience and those buying Adidas on Nordstrom as well. Next, we need to look at the overlap in these audiences once again. And what's key to point out here is that 59% of the Foot Locker Adidas buyer also visited Adidas directly. So this could raise some alarms for Adidas, which could suggest that there may be some cannibalization of their direct sales going on with their retailers. So looking into this a bit further, we want to understand what the different purchase behavior is of these audiences are. So over the 12 weeks of peak period, we've trended the audiences purchasing over time. Key things to note here is that the Foot Locker Adidas buyer and their direct buyer convert around a similar time of Black Friday. But when it comes to the Nordstrom Adidas buyer, we can see that they're converting a lot closer to Christmas. Again, this could start raising some questions for Adidas in terms of our Foot Locker stealing some of their direct buyer. So what we want to do now is start profiling this audience and see, are we actually cannibalizing our sales, or are we actually targeting a different audience? So looking at the profiles of each audience, we can see the direct buyer for Adidas is a young male coming from affluent and aspirational families, whereas on Foot Locker, the Adidas buyer is a slightly older male and coming from those more affluent families from suburban areas. And then comparing that again to the Nordstrom Adidas buyer, we can see a little bit different there with a younger female coming from affluent and aspirational families again. So to summarize that section for those brands that sell indirectly and directly, we need to grow your total sales by ensuring that each retailer that you supply on has a different audience set, and we deliver those different products to suit their needs. So finally, moving on to those brands that only sell directly. There is a blind spot when it comes to understanding your complete audience online. So firstly, what we want to do is understand how they engage with your site. So in this example, we're going to use Zara, who only sell directly. And what we've done is started to size their audience by visitors and then buyers, and looking at their different engagement with the Zara website. So we can see that a visitor to Zara is a lot less likely to spend a lot more time on the site, looking at fewer pages, whereas the Zara buyer is spending more time and visiting more pages. So now, again, we want to look at what are the differences in their behaviours. And we do this by a number of different means. Firstly, by looking at their search behaviour. We can see that the Zara visitor is a lot more general in their searches, looking at Zara bags and Zara dresses, whereas the Zara buyer is a lot more specific, searching for things like black fur coat and leather boots. So we can see that they're more intent. Then we can see where else they're browsing online. So this is where there might be a blind spot on your direct buyer, seeing that the Zara buyer is more likely to shop on other high-end fashion retailers such as Net-a-Porter and Matches. And then finally, we can see where are they also converting. So we can see that the Zara visitor is converting on Boohoo and Argos, whereas the Zara buyer is more likely to convert on H&M and ASOS. So to summarise, for the direct buyer, we need to use search and online purchase data to know your buyer and keep them loyal. So understanding this level of detail helps us understand that audience more and keep them for longer. So to summarise, the online retail outlook. Our reliance on retailers is increasing, especially when we see that Amazon's dominance doesn't seem to be slowing. And what this creates is that every brand and retailer has a blind spot on their competitors and purchasing behaviour. So for retailers specifically, we need to track our audience at risk. So understanding this blind spot of our audience and understanding their preferences and behaviours to make sure that we keep this audience at risk. Then for brands who sell indirect and directly to buyers, we must ensure that we're attracting a unique segment on each retailer as well as our own site. And then for those brands that only sell directly, we have to use search and purchase data to keep our loyal customers and make sure we're going past that blind spot to keep them. So that brings us to the end of our presentation. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to learn more about Hitwise, or if you have any other specific inquiries, then please feel free to get in touch at contact-uk@hitwise.com or visit our website for our latest content on the Insight Hub. Thank you.